Have you ever noticed that it is easy to have intuitive feelings and opinions about many things without much effort at all? From music to relationships to politics, we are able to mentalize our thoughts on subject matter for which we may have little to no evidence. Why is that? In Chapter 9 of Thinking, Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman lays out several answers to this question. First, he notices that we are quick to answer difficult questions by subtly substituting another question in its place. Consider these examples where we contrast the target question with the question our minds automatically substitute in its place. How much would you contribute to save an endangered species? Becomes, how much emotion do I feel when I think of dying dolphins? How happy are you with your life these days? Becomes, what is my mood right now? And how should financial advisors who prey on the elderly be punished? Becomes, how much anger do I feel when I think of financial predators? You see what is happening? When faced with a difficult or possibly complex question, our brains move quickly to simplify it so that we can generate an answer. We change the question into something we can relate to emotionally and then quantify an answer by the level of intensity we feel. All of this happens beneath our conscious awareness and allows us to quickly engage many questions that come our way. But our brains don't merely substitute answers for the sake of speed. Our brains also make assumptions based on perceived context. An interesting example of this happens in our visual processing. Look at this image and answer this question. Is the figure on the right larger than the figure on the left? Our minds are quick to answer that the image on the right is larger. But if you were able to take the 3D context out and measure each figure with a ruler, you would see that all the figures are the same size. What is happening here? Simply put, our brains perceive a three-dimensional field and see the two-dimensional objects against that field. We can't unsee it no matter how hard we try. We understand the question and we can stop to measure, but even without stopping, our brains have delivered the verdict based on perceived context. Speaking of context, think about these two questions. How happy are you these days? How many dates did you have last month? When the questions were asked in this way to college students, there was almost no correlation between the two answers. But when they asked the questions in reverse order, the correlation was very high. When college students heard the question about happiness against the context of their dating lives, they basically answered them both in the same way. No one is immune from these mental biases. In fact, to make it more personal, psychologist Paul Slovic has argued that people let their likes and dislikes determine their beliefs about the world. For example, if you love to ride motorcycles, you are likely to discount the risks associated with riding them. This also goes for things like eating red meat, your views on nuclear power, getting tattoos, or even evaluating our current healthcare system. We tend to start from our likes and dislikes and form our conclusions accordingly. We are not dispassionate robots who evaluate all available information. Quite the contrary. When faced with complex questions, our intuition is quick to hazard an answer, and that answer is usually rooted in a perceived context or our personal emotions on the subject at hand.